Hello and welcome to this long form video covering my Dino Spotlight series from episodes 1 to 5. Each video explores an individual sandbox dinosaur from the Legacy Isle and takes a deeper look at how they play and survive. The dinosaurs you see being shown on the screen is what you will see in this video. Please make use of the chapters to travel to the specific episodes, or check out the original videos on my channel as each one contains extra content which isn't featured within this one. This is an ongoing series which is less than halfway done, so if you like what you see, please make sure to like and subscribe for future episodes. Enjoy! The Psittacosaurus, or Taco for short, is the smallest, weakest and most vulnerable playable in the Legacy Isle. It's as slow as a panicked snail, as intimidating as a toddler, and has the bite force of your nan. So how can we realistically survive in a game that's essentially a carnivore simulator, as a dinosaur that's mostly recognised as AI prey and not as a player? Well, let's find out. As I spawned into the Azura servers, my first focus was to find a water source and head to it as soon as possible, because God knows how long it will take for me to get there, and the threat of me dying from no water or food is very real when you travel like plankton trying to escape the Krusty Krab.
You'll never catch me, crabs. Not when I shift into maximum overdrive. Hi-ya!
I also realised I had been cursed with the spawn that essentially puts me right next to twins. This means my chances of meeting a carnivore has just gone up by about 200%, which I found out very soon was exactly the case. Due to the fact to where I was, I couldn't exactly stick around the water source I ended up finding, so after a little swim in the pond, which was actually faster than my sprint by the way, I decided to move onwards to a safer spot so I don't become dinner so quickly. As sunrise came, I was trying my best to track down a new water source when I realised something had tracked down me as well, and at this point I didn't want to die so soon, so I showed them a very threatening, intimidating display, and when that didn't work, I resorted to the classic strategy of playing nice and global, and thankfully this worked. It really is moments like these that make you realise how small you really are. So after avoiding death, I ended up biting the bullet and getting my next drink from twins, as it was the next closest water source, and playing Taco has got to be one of the most boring experiences that you can have in the Isle. I had just spent a good 15 minutes travelling a distance which would usually take 3, and I was craving a little bit of danger. I took a moment to claim twins as my own and flex my superiority for all to see, despite the fact that nobody was around, and this soon came to bite me in the ass when a Carno turned up. I thought I was doing an excellent job of being a fly on the wall until the Carno confirmed themselves that they could see me. So with all that said and done, I went to say hello, considering I've been having good luck with carnivores lately, and perhaps I'm too small of a meal to be bothered with. It was at this point I realised that I could actually make burrows like a Dryosaurus, so I took the moment to make myself a little home and take in the isolation, which is pretty similar to my real life outside of the Isle. At one point I got jumped by a Dilo, which realised that I was simply too powerful to deal with and couldn't even turn around to get a bite in. So eventually he gave up, recognised my superiority and left. I tried to use my newly formed Battle Lust on an Oro that I found, but quickly found out that my attacks do about the same amount of damage as a hungry baby, so I decided to give up and move on. While I was on a way to get another drink, I actually came across a carnivore that did want to eat me, so before my death I made sure to give him a little bit more of a challenge than he bargained for. So after all that, you're probably thinking that this video is a little bit underwhelming, as you'd expect from a Taco video, but because of that I've decided to add a little mini challenge for the end of this video called Operation Diveboard. So what's the goal of this challenge? Well, it's simple. Make it to the diving board from spawn on the deathmatch map without dying. But how many attempts will that take? Well, enjoy. Meet the Camarasaurus, also known as the Cama. This sauropod is one of the largest playables in Legacy. It can kill dinos by trampling alone, it's as loud as a passenger jet, and has a whopping 12,000 health, which is almost double that of a Rex. The Cama is a sandbox dinosaur, meaning it wasn't yet balanced for survival gameplay on the Legacy, and is only accessible on survival through unofficial Legacy servers. The Cama is actually quite a lot smaller than you'd expect, as it looks quite malnourished when next to other large dinos. Maybe the reason this dinosaur was unfinished was because it hadn't finished growing yet. Regardless, it's safe to say that if you're looking for a more peaceful experience wandering the Isle, the Cama is one of your go-tos. So what's it like trying to survive as the Cama? Well, in this video, we'll try and get a taste of that. Little did I know, this adventure would be its own unique form of torture, similar to that of the taco. So stay tuned. Upon loading up the game, I noticed I have essentially begun my journey in one of the worst starting points ever in the Isle, as I'd found myself in the middle of absolutely nowhere, in one of the deadest sections of the map, contained by many, many canyons. Now for a Cama who isn't known for being quick or nimble, this is absolute hell, and getting absolutely terrible starting points seems to be becoming a common trend. But despite this setback, I decided to say screw it and head into the canyons to find somewhere a little bit more exciting. Whilst I was heading there, I did my best sea monster impression and saw a bridge in the distance which I considered throwing myself off of. Don't let the editing fool you, this has already been 15 minutes of solid walking and existing. And call my mind fragile, but this was definitely enough for me to consider jumping off that bridge at multiple times. Fortunately though, for the sake of my Cama's life, I found an exit to the canyons and caught scent of a lake to head to. Little did I know that this was the Avery Lake, which meant I can't reach the water. I took the time to think about all the water that I took for granted, and then again considered jumping off that bridge. That consideration grew stronger when I realised I'd actually ended up further away from where I'd actually wanted to go. The time eventually came to eat, and this is the perfect moment to talk about one of the Cama's special disabilities. When the Cama eats, it inhales it. Each bush will be eaten in one bite no matter what the size, and it will refill the same amount of food every time. This can become problematic when you're sticking around one area, but as you can see, I have plenty of walking to do, and it has got to a point where I've had to seriously consider even turning back for bushes, when in reality, I just can't be bothered. With Great Falls now the closest point of interest in sight, I decided to make that climb, but not before becoming an absolute cabbage fiend and destroying every shrub that I can see. As I finally reached the peak of Great Falls, I made contact with other players for the first time in this entire session, and I was hoping that it would be a friendly welcome. But who are we kidding? Let's not forget what game we are playing, and there are no happy endings in the Isle. The following doesn't go well for me, but I at least had the opportunity to demonstrate the broken stomp attack that this absolute unit has. The stomp itself does huge damage throughout the period of the animation, but what the Rex didn't realise is that damage doesn't end until I completely settle down from my attack. I did my best to fight off the Shant, but just like the stomp giveth, the stomp taketh away, and I failed to land any more noticeable hits before more backup came and I lost this tortured Cama. In the end, I think I would have preferred to jump off that bridge. The Puertasaurus, also known as the Pew for short, is the largest playable dinosaur on the Legacy Isle. When it comes to sheer size and power, not a single other dinosaur on the whole roster comes close. The difference is so huge, it's almost ridiculous to even compare. It was left unfinished as a sandbox dino, and it was never balanced for survival. So in terms of gameplay, Puertasaurus comes with its own very unique set of advantages and disadvantages that we'll be taking a look at today. So join me as we look at the inner workings of the largest living presence in the game as we try to survive as it. As I logged in, I was hit with the realization that I was once again at Twins. Although today, I am not the one in danger, I am the danger. At least to anybody slow enough to let me catch them. For the most part though, your core experience of playing Pew will consist of being gawked at by other players from a distance like you're some sort of walking point of interest. But considering barely anybody plays this dinosaur, you kinda essentially are. Safe to say the 3 hours I experienced playing the Pew mainly consisted walking very slowly and being observed from a safe distance like some sort of contagious freak of nature. My first activity was to get acquainted with the Lakert twins, because I wanted to see how deep I could go, and it turns out even at the deepest point, my head poked out of the water, just like a giant turd asserting its dominance over a toilet bowl. Its height alone means that you can see for miles, whilst also being seen for miles. This means trying to mount an ambush on a pew is borderline useless, and that's if anybody will even bother trying. This is because it can one-shot with the majority of its attacks. Most will generally avoid you, as they can see or hear you coming from across the map. In regards to its attacks, it's the only one that has 3 actual variations to use at its disposal. It has a big stomp attack with a large area of effect at the front, a back kick attack that gets those pesky heel biters away, and if you sprint, you unlock a special tail attack also. The pew's immense size means that not even apexes for the most part will touch you, and the ones that do take the risk will have a very long and drawn out fight ahead of them. You see, the pew isn't actually invincible. While it is incredibly hard to kill thanks to its health pool and high damage, it actually has one weak spot, the back left leg. The back left leg has no attack, and it can be ridden by small dinosaurs to consistently do damage without risk of becoming a small brown stain on the ground. However, it still takes a long time even for a Rex, and all it takes is one slip up. So we've taken a look at some of the pew's unique traits that assist it in survival in some way, but what are some of the setbacks? Well, it can't sit down, it can't swim, it's loud as hell, its eating and drinking mechanics is pure suffering, and its sprint is just terrible in more ways than one. In regards to sustaining itself, its height becomes its biggest setback, as due to its head being so high off the ground, it needs to submerge itself in the water to even drink. This means becoming a sea monster every time you're thirsty. As for food, some players have found ways to actually feed off bushes as a pew, because no, you can't actually eat any trees. However, I am not one of those players that can feed off bushes, as no matter how hard I try, I cannot seem to find that sweet spot to trigger the prompt. It seems like my superior size is also the key to my downfall. I guess you could say that I'm suffering from success. Throughout the whole session, I attempted to eat using various different angles and approaches, with no luck. All I could do was watch my hunger drain down like a doomsday clock. On a side note though, if you, the viewer, know the secret to eating while playing this beast, then please drop it in the comments below so myself and others can learn from your sweaty gamer skills. When looking at the pew's sprint mechanic, it's hardly even worth using. You hardly move any faster, and I would say it's barely even noticeable if it wasn't for the fact that it causes a server to have a seizure every time I do it. I don't know if it's just my PC, but every time I decided to move a little bit faster, it felt like I was ripping the fabric of time and space. You're probably wondering why this video is focusing more on everything about the pew rather than the session of me trying to survive. That's because I didn't need to do much to survive as pew. The only hardship I face is my own starvation. I survive by simply existing, and there's only so many angles I can show you of a pew walking before the gameplay gets a little bit boring, and unfortunately nobody wanted beef with me either. Anyways, let's talk about travelling through water. As the pew may not be able to swim, it can't exactly drown either. The pew actually denies all existence of water in the Isle, and it will literally just walk along the seafloor if required. The reason I know this is because I thought drowning was my one true escape from this hellish existence, but it seems the Isle gods were way ahead of me and prevented me from the sweet release of death, leaving me to soak in the wonderful yellow void that lies under the water. But what do you expect from a version of a game that was abandoned in 2019? So instead, I sat and sulked in the still water just like I used to do as a kid after being caught trying to drink the bathwater. With my motivation to continue playing this beast at an all-time low, I decided to log out and come back once it's daytime, because if I'm going to be stuck in this miserable existence until I starve, I may as well do it in the sunshine for all to see. As the sun rose the next morning, I came to terms with the fact that the pew is essentially a walking time bomb of starvation, a prisoner to its own size and greed, and as poetic as that sounds, it doesn't make for much of an enjoyable existence. So of course, I did what I do best at the times of existential crisis, and I picked the flashiest spot to throw myself off a cliff, that being the radio tower. If I'm going to die, I wanted to be on my own terms, so before my hunger caught up with me, I made my way up the mountain. Once reaching the top, I enjoyed the view of the landscape which accommodated my painful existence. I took a moment to take it all in, and then very slowly sacrificed my body to the rocky cliffs below. Meet the Albertosaurus, also known as Alberto or Albert. It is a mid-tier sandbox carnivore that was never fully kitted out for survival gameplay before Legacy's eventual abandonment. It isn't selectable as a playable dinosaur on official servers, and due to this, not everybody knows about this guy. At full growth, it sits with a bite force of 424, with 10 bleed on each bite, and an overall health pool of 6,000. It is a decently strong and fast dinosaur, capable of engaging with dinosaurs of differing sizes and being a persistent threat. It can function pretty well both solo and in groups if in the right hands. The Alberto in time will likely be added into Everymer, but don't ask me when because I don't think even Dondi knows. But what is the current one like? How does it survive in Legacy? What role did it fill? And why does it look so damn good? Well, join me today for this Dinosaur Spotlight as we hope to answer some of these questions while we begin a new journey in an attempt to survive as one of the least known dinosaurs in the Isle. Our journey began in quite an empty part of the map, which I suppose is a good thing considering I have the PvP skills of a quadriplegic. This time round I decided to avoid twins altogether and head to somewhere less travelled instead. This ended up being the docks, which is located on the opposite side of the map. To add a little extra challenge, I didn't allow myself to use any maps to help me get there, and I relied on my own memory to get me to the location. This ended up leading to some unfortunate experiences, but before we get to that, let's take a closer look at the Alberto itself. The Alberto is quite a unique dinosaur in the Isle. Its strengths and weaknesses put it somewhere above the mid-tier carnivores such as the Yellow, but below the pseudo-apexes like the Acro. Somewhere in the same area as the Suco, but with more mobility at the cost of less health. When directly compared to some of the other mid-tiers, you can see it is substantially bigger, easily being the tallest of the majority, but still being dwarfed by something such as the T-Rex, and we aren't even going to bother bringing the Pew into the conversation. But we might be fighting one later. Speaking of fights though, before I started any of this ill-fated journey as Alberto, the night prior I gathered with the usual gang to help gather extra footage for this video, and it was during this time we decided to put on a little 3-on-1 match against our distant cousin the Rex, just for the funsies. This is how it went. Just keep in mind that none of the Albertos were fully grown during this fight. Moving on though, and aside from making a nice 3-course meal for an apex, the Alberto has some other cool features. That includes its incredible good looks. With its striking colours and patterns, the Alberto in my opinion is the Derek Zoolander of Legacy. I say he specifically because the female version is quite a bit different, looking like what you would get if you photocopied a slice of bread and slapped it on the texture and called it a day. Perhaps with the Albertosaurus, it's down to the male to serve looks. But back to the journey at hand, and I had already found myself near Gulf Pond, and this is where I took the opportunity to stay hydrated, as I wasn't sure where the next chance to drink would be. The Alberto gets thirsty pretty damn quick. The hunger drain on the other hand is pretty good, allowing you to go for long periods without being in danger of starving, making it an ideal pick for when you simply want to chill and explore until you get killed anyway. In terms of growing, the odds were in my favour, as Alberto growth starts from fresh adult, specifically 60% grown. This is a direct consequence of the game being abandoned before Alberto was balanced, and just like other Sandbox Dinos, the Alberto can't smell for water or food either. Staying on the topic of food and hunting, one of the Alberto's standout abilities is its decently fast ambush speed, allowing you to cover a lot of ground quite quickly whether you're chasing smaller prey or trying to save your own ass. Its stamina, however, takes its time to refill, so make sure you use it with discipline, and keep a safe distance from ambushing carnivores such as Rexes, as they will close the distance before you can say oops. So after some time travelling through the darkness after nightfall, I kept hearing the calls of various hunters around and it started to fill me with anxiety, so I made sure to stick to the tree line to avoid being spotted by something that could end me before I could reach full growth. This served me well until morning. However, my journey led me to a point where I had to enter the mouth of a valley, and unfortunately this led me straight to a group of mix packers, which included a Thery that was friendly enough to chase me down and kill me, because how dare I interrupt their dino chat room time.
I'm joking! Stop!
But thankfully, for the first time in Dino Spotlight history, the Isle Gods decided to bless me this time with a respawn point that was actually closer to my destination, effectively cutting out a portion of my journey. This, however, didn't stop them from sending me a juvie Rex my way to try and eat me before I could try and safe log to get a new Alberto. It wasn't captured, but he came back to finish me off right before I logged, so I did the respectable thing and politely murdered him once I returned as Alberto. Don't judge me for that one. Now with one death on the record for this journey and my patience significantly shortened, we now have to practice safe travelling. This means taking the least dangerous route to our destination and not taking any shortcuts. So obviously I used my high IQ and decided to descend a steep cliff. The absolute unforeseeable happened and I broke my leg and I had to take a recovery nap. I'm sure nothing else could go wrong. Let this be a lesson to you all that no matter where you are or what you're doing, there is always an ambushing Rex ready to ruin your day, especially if you kill their kids. So while the past me mourns the death of this second Alberto, let's have a look at some interesting facts about the real Albertosaurus. Albertosaurus lived between 73 and 69 million years ago in what is now south-central Alberta. It was a top predator in its ecosystem and was a close relative to the T-Rex, which appeared around 1 million years after the Alberto's extinction. It was a bit smaller than its other relatives and was roughly around 9 meters in size and had long, strong legs that suggested it was a fast runner. There's also good evidence that suggests that the Alberto displayed pack behavior, as one dig site boasted a discovery of 26 individual Albertosaurus, all in close proximity. I wonder how many of those Albertos had broken ankles themselves. So let's get back to my brand new shiny Alberto number 3, and it seems like the Isle Gods still have gifts for me, as once again I've spawned close to my destination, but this time my patience was at an all-time low and I decided to outright buy an adult Alberto, as it was clear that I wasn't going to grow one before reaching my goal and it made me feel more safe. That safe feeling quickly drained away when I crossed paths with the same Rex that murdered me only a few moments ago. They appeared relaxed, but I didn't dare close the distance as I had now been hurt too often in one sitting. I had developed crippling trust issues, just like a gullible person on April Fool's Day. However, they proved to be trustworthy and they let me pass by with no more violence. As I reached the last stretch of my journey, I found the buildings that I was looking for that had the path that led straight to the port. It's moments like these that make me think about what the devs had in store for this area. Was it going to be used as a base for humans? What would its function be? Considering it's labelled as the barracks on the unofficial map, perhaps military. The area was quiet and void of any other players, perhaps because this section of the map is not that popular, or maybe it's because I'm the only player so far to make it through this gauntlet of dinosaurs that I've left behind, make it being a rather generous way of putting it. The path was long and winding and had me travelling for so long that I had genuinely thought I had somehow double backed on myself. But eventually I found the gates to my destination. I had made it to port and I admired the unfinished human-made buildings in this area. It's almost like the devs put them there as a visual representation of the half-made game that they had left behind. I mooched around for a bit and then, as tradition demands, I looked for a place to end this Alberto's suffering. No big jumps to be had here though, so I had to opt for a good old-fashioned drowning, slowly losing air while paddling around, ready to sacrifice myself once more for the future blessings from the legacy gods. Meet the Ankylosaurus, also known as the Yankee. A dinosaur so infamous for its ability to shatter ankles, it's embedded within its own name. The Yankee is another sandbox dinosaur that was left less fleshed out than its other dinosaur counterparts. Legacy's abandonment leaving it not necessarily balanced for your optimal survival experience. It has a maximum health of 5,443 and a max damage of 1,260. That's a slight bit higher than the power of a Rex bite, although without the benefit of leg break, as Anky never had this mechanic added, leaving it never living up to its true potential. But nevertheless, the Yankee is still a force of nature to those who challenge it, sacrificing speed and mobility for bulk and bludgeoning. A beast perfectly happy to disable you permanently should you dare get close to his favourite rock. However, luckily for us, the Azura servers allow us to experience what it would be like if Anky was granted its leg-breaking powers, meaning we are all the more a force to be reckoned with. So in today's long-awaited Spotlight video, we'll be taking a deeper look into the Legacy Yankee, how it works, how long we can survive as one, and most importantly, how it honks and bonks with its true bonking enabled. Enjoy. Today's adventure started with a friend, as there's only one thing that's better than an Anky, and that's a second one, allowing us to stub dino toes at twice the efficiency. That, and we are also each other's emotional support animal. After we got our bearings briefly, we set off on our journey, but that's not before breaking one of our own ankles before heading anywhere. We started our journey at Rapids Pond and made it our general end destination to reach the bog at the top end of the map. Of course, I wouldn't be surprised if this plan would eventually fall apart along the way. As you guys can already probably see, the Yankee was hit with the same curse as the Alberto, and that curse is the male serving looks and the female serving brown bread. But to be fair, I think the Yankee looks nicer in a natural brown. Despite being classed as a sandbox dino, it's actually relatively complete when compared to the others. It can smell for food, it can nest, and it has all its basic controls present. I think what caused it to not be available with the base roster was just general stat balancing and a lack of bone break. But as mentioned before, Azura has a mod in place for the Anky to live up to its reputation, so we really don't have that much holding us back. Well, apart from our own speed and turn radius, as we move and turn like a bus driving at peak traffic times. When it comes to general attacks, the Yankee has two variations at its disposal: breaking your kneecap or breaking your friend's kneecap. A very simple yet effective defense method, as a handful of hits, if not one, is enough to wipe out most dinos.
Better scramble like an egg before you get folded like an omelet. Jaeger.
However, this leaves the Anky quite open on its front end, and this tied with its bad turn radius means that you need to be careful with your positioning. While on the topic of damage, one impressive thing about the Yankee is how strong they can be in the juvie stage, especially with bone break. A fresh juvie Yankee already can do enough damage to make small tier carnivores look the other way, and they are actually still capable of breaking the legs of large dinos even when they are little. You see, the way the leg break works is that it operates off a percentage. Juvies have 30% chance of breaking a limb per swing, and adults have an 80% chance. However, the mechanics get a little foggy when the factor of weight is also brought into the equation. And let's not forget that Legacy is buggy as hell anyways, so nothing is guaranteed. For example, we tested the juvie bone break with some apexes, and couldn't seem to get a break with multiple hits. However, we managed to break a Giga's leg twice. It seems like baby Yankees are Giga hunters. Juvie Yankees also have silent footsteps, meaning they can travel without making a sound. Here's an example, comparing it with the footsteps of a juvie Utah. Who knew that juvie Yankees have the natural qualities of a silent assassin with a hammer? But onwards with our dysfunctional adventure, and we spent the first leg desperately trying to avoid the mix pack we could hear in the distance, because despite our combined power, numbers will always win eventually. Little did we know our fate would soon be inevitable, but as we travelled we began to appreciate the jolly walk cycle the Yankee has. It almost made us want to be optimistic for the journey ahead. But of course, when you're playing the Isle, any hint of enjoyment that you feel is just a sign of bad things to come. As night began to fall, we made sure to stay full of leafy greens, although it wasn't exactly necessary, as both Anky's thirst and food drain are actually pretty decent, and it'll be a fair amount of time before you run out of your reserves, but just like that fat couple you see in McDonald's, there's always space for more calories. After a good amount of waddling along, we made it to just about the halfway mark, and my partner in crime, emphasis on the word crime, decided to eye up a juvie in the distance and make his slow yet murderous approach. To cut him some slack, the juvie had somewhat of an extended time to make his escape, but sadly, he met his doom. I expressed that bad karma would come for us soon, and boy was I right. Shortly after the murder, we noticed the mix pack we've been avoiding this entire time was tailing behind us. We hoped that we'd be able to avoid conflict by sticking close together, but eventually they circled around us, and the bloody fight of broken bones began. After securing the bone break on the Giga, I was in a very dangerous position. I was bleeding a lot, so I couldn't risk chasing the Giga down to finish it without risking myself. I needed to sit down, but the aloe was making sure that I couldn't do that either. So within my life in the balance, I used my last moments to do callouts for Skink in hope that he could finish the job. You get him, he's got me good.
Got him.
Nice. Can you come protect me? Because I'm low health.
Yeah. Oh. The Parasaurus on me.
Nice, come to me and just defend me.
Okay.
Nice, he's got a broken leg, finish him.
I'm coming in. I'm coming in.
Nice, now lie down and rest. This was a sweet victory, but it was short-lived, as backup arrived shortly in the form of at least 2 Rexes, and our Anky lives were taken away. I was quite impressed with our efforts, but it really shows the difference that leg break ability makes. So whilst we wait for me and Skink to gather once more and restart from where we left off, why don't we take a look at the real Anky? Ankylosaurus was a large herbivore that lived in what is now North America during the Cretaceous period. It grew up to around 10 meters long and was estimated to weigh up to 4 tons or even higher. While the Anky's tail is infamously known for defense against predators, studies actually show that they use their club tails against each other more often than carnivores, as damage to their osteoderms show evidence of blunt force trauma rather than bite damage. Perhaps they were avoided by predators so much that they only had themselves to take the violence out on, or maybe it's just because other Ankys couldn't run away so fast. Onwards to attempt number 2, and I originally thought we were right where we left off, but by the time we got our waddling started again, I realised we were actually close to everybody's favourite place. Twins. And guess what we have to pass through to get to our location? Yeah, twins. Thankfully though, that mix pack must have had a clear out prior to our arrival, as the only thing around the hotspot was a littering of dead bodies, a dinosaur graveyard. One Rex was still around, but it decided to hightail it when it saw us coming. In retrospect, he may have been one of the Rexes who had killed us before, and was worried that we had come back for revenge. We chose to carry on as we'd already had our fair share of apex blood, and the Rex gave the impression he felt the same way. After the final stretch of walking and conversing about Anky escapades, we closed in on our destination, only to find a young Suko to welcome us. And of course, my youngling-beating friend wanted nothing more than to turn him into a brown stain on the ground. Thankfully, his speed prevents him from becoming the most prolific juvie killer the Isle has ever seen. As we made it to the top of our destination, we soaked in our triumphs and eventually once again resorted to mindless violence against one another, to see who could claim the rightful title of King of the Waterslide. Sadly, I myself was not destined for this title, but despite this, I'm still quite happy with how our adventure had turned out.